Okay, we are here to talk through the new academic schedule that's set for the 2015-2016 school year.
My name is Lindsay Wolin Casey. I am the assistant head of upper school, and I also teach French in the upper school. I have taught at North Shore for the past 18 years, and I've been in education for the past 25 years.
And I'm Lizzie Giffen, and I'm the associate director of college counseling, and I teach sophomore English. And I've worked in independent schools for 11 years, and this is my third year at North Shore. The two of us were on the committee, along with Kyle Jones, the chair of our PE department, Julia McCall, the chair of our performing arts department, Brian Frederick, the chair of our math department, and Joan Ryder, one of our science teachers.
About a year ago, Tom Dorr, head of school, came to us and said, "We'd really like to work on creating an academic schedule that meets what we do as a school and really enhances and reflects what we do as a school." So he gave us 3 charges. He had worked on them with Chris Boyle, assistant head of school, and Dave Potter. And these were the 3 charges that they gave us. They said that we needed to create a schedule that supports our academic ambitions in alignment with the strategic plan. Well, within the strategic plan, we talk a lot about experiential ed, along with the fact that we want kids to be gaining deep mastery, really working with material, and doing skill development. In addition to that, they wanted us to create a schedule that leverages the power of strong relationships. At North Shore, students are known. It's something that we really believe in and that we pride ourselves on. So we want to leverage that power student to teacher, and teacher to teacher, so that the individual growth and personal development are maximized. In addition to that, our third charge was to support North Shore's commitment to provide students with a multifaceted, because we ask them to do many things, but also healthy and balanced high school experience.
So with these 3 charges, the committee set out on an 8-month process of research. And we started with bringing in a consultant named Ross Peters, who headed a change of schedule at the Hawkins School and also at the Westminster Schools in Atlanta, as well as Trung Lee, who was the architect of our building in the upper school. And we met with him. And the committee started by interviewing all teaching, all faculty members, both teaching and non-teaching in the upper school. And we coded that material and looked through the patterns and used that as a springboard for a lot of our work. We also asked for volunteer students, and we had about 40 students come from the 4 grades who met with us to talk through the process. We did research and data mining on our own, which included a lot of work done by Independent School Management Group. Then we went on some trips. We visited the Westminster Schools and the Lovett School in Atlanta, Georgia, who have both recently gone through a schedule change. And then we took 9 members of our community down to New York, and we went to City Term, Ethical Culture Fieldston School, the Calhoun School, and Montclair Kimberly Academy, to look at how they do experiential ed, to look at the new schedules they had implemented, and to gain some ideas from them. We did have some non-negotiables from our head of school, Mr. Dorr. One of that being we have to have morning X. We could be creative with it, but we had to have it. And lunch as well, because we obviously have to get 530 students through the lunch room, not just our 215 in upper school. So then we began meeting with specified groups. We met with the upper school department heads to talk through how a new schedule would impact different disciplines. What one department might want or need might be different than another. We had a presentation on physical education and health from an adolescent point of view. We talked obviously with the heads of the lower and the middle school, because this is a JK through 12 community. We talked to Patrick McHugh in the athletic department. We spent a lot of time talking with the science department chair and scientists in residence. And then we had ongoing discussions with Mr. Dorr, Mr. Boyle, and Dr. Potter. Once we were done with this process, then we talked through much of our research, and we started with a blank slate. And we're going to show you the new schedule. We're going to layer it on top of one slide on top of the next, so you can understand the decisions that we made.
The first thing that we needed to decide was how many schedulable blocks did we want. So right now, in our upper school as it stands, we have 7 schedulable blocks. This allows students to take English, math, science, history, a language, and art and still have a free block or a study hall. It also allows some students to double in disciplines that they really are interested in and care about. We toyed with the idea of moving it down to 6 and really saying you have to choose and then to reduce the amount of choices students could make. But we really liked what we had with 7. We didn't want to add an 8th because we felt that if we had 8, students would do more and actually push themselves even over their own limits. So we decided to stay with 7. We went with a 7-day rotation because what we decided was that it was necessary to have an even distribution of minutes and of classes, so the 7-day rotation worked with the 7 schedulable blocks. One of the reasons that we wanted an even distribution of minutes and really decided to go to the long blocks was that in our current schedule we have 3 45-minute blocks and 1 65-minute block. And things that we heard from faculty were things like 45 minutes isn't enough time, or the random long block makes the long block ineffective, but long blocks are a strength of the schedule now. So we wanted to go with a strength, which would be a long block, but also consistency to help people plan and manage their day. Another reason that we looked at long blocks is because a class can be broken up into instructional time and learning time. And it doesn't really matter. More instructional time doesn't always help with deeper learning. However, more actual hands-on learning time does. So the longer blocks allows us time for some instructional time, which may be teacher-driven, but also a lot of learning time where students can really work with different content and skills and expand what they're able to do with the material. We looked at 70 minutes and 75 when we went with 75 minutes because it gave us enough time throughout the year. And in addition to that, one of the things that we really did a lot of research on was transitional time. It wasn't just random that we chose, 45 blocks or 45-minute blocks are too short. But there is transition time in an adolescent brain where it takes 13 minutes to transition from one class to another. So if you take 45 minutes minus 13, you only have 32 minutes where you can do both instruction and learning. So really expanding that window allows teachers and students to be able to do much more authentic learning in a class.
So once we decided that we were going to go to a 7-block rotation with 75-minute classes, we were looking through much of what the faculty and the students said regarding the relationships they have with each other. Students are well known. Students are meeting with teachers frequently, and this is a strength that we've built a lot on in our school. So we heard from all the faculty and kids that if you don't share a free period with a teacher, it is very hard to meet with that teacher. You're usually meeting with them during lunch, maybe quickly after school, but before you're running to practice. Often kids are coming in early. And we seem to have a pull where we're really pushing for kids to meet with teachers and teachers to meet with students, and yet we didn't have an ideal space to do that. So we've added a 25-minute period called the CWP, the Common Work Period. And the goal of that time is for that time to be sacred, where all the faculty members will be in their classrooms, and that's a time for students to touch base if they want to get a little extra help, if they want to touch base about a paper coming up, if they know that they have an athletic early dismissal, at the end of the day, they can touch base with their teacher in a 25-minute period to get a preview of that lesson and to make sure they're not getting behind. And so for the CWP, it's not going to be a meeting time. It's not going to be scheduled club time or scheduled meeting time. It's going to allow for students and faculty to have a free time where everyone can get together and get the help that they might need or might want. After the CWP, we will look at the 9:30 to 10:15 time slot. One of our non-negotiables was we knew we had to have morning X, and we could be creative with that time. We could look at the number of times we have it, how often we have it, but we knew we were going to have it in the schedule. And most the faculty members and many of the kids said we actually love community time, but we would prefer it to be less often so that it's more meaningful. So we have one morning X on a 7-day cycle. We also will have one town meeting. CG stands for community gathering and class meeting time for the upper school. Currently, we have 2 of those opportunities in the 5-day cycle, and we now will have 1 opportunity in the 7-day cycle for the chance for the upper school to get together. Again, kids really like that time, faculty really like that time, and now by having it once in a 7-day cycle, we can make sure that it's meaningful. You'll also see that we have 2 blocks for PE wellness, similar to what we have now. We looked extensively at some research and had a great presentation by our chair of our PE department that says that physical activity for adolescents earlier in the morning actually helps them sustain themselves academically throughout the day. And as we looked at kind of creative and different ways to do PE and health and wellness, we liked currently where we were and felt like putting this in 2 times in the 7-day cycle will still allow for the kids to do this. This is also a block we use to teach health. We use a lot of seminars. The seniors will use it for senior service at the end of the year. So it's a nice flexible time for us. You will see on the 4th day that 9:30 to 10:15 slot kind of disappears, and we will have a late start every 4th day at 9 o'clock. There's a lot of research out there right now that says the adolescent brain starts later in the day, and we felt like this was a great opportunity through a lot of the work we've done with Challenge Success out of Stanford University, that we could give the students an opportunity to sleep in just a little bit. And then you will see advisory on the 7th day. We have a very important advisor system in place, and that will still allow us to have 45 minutes of time dedicated to just your small advisory group. And then the last thing is this performing arts and JK to 12 community time. And when we talked to the students, all they wanted to talk about was this feeling that they were pulled and stressed because we require them to do a lot of things, and there just sometimes doesn't feel like there's enough time in the day to do them all. Currently, if you're in a performance, you can also be in a sport at the same time, but you will get out of class at 3:05, run as fast as you can to get to the performance arts practice at 3:15, which means you usually skip help after school. You do your performance for an hour, and then you run to change and make it out to the athletic practice late. And the students really felt like we were pulling them in too many different directions. And while this block only happens once every 7 days, the goal is to help alleviate some of that stress. So if you're in a performance during that season, whether that be theater or musical, you will go to the performing arts block and have your rehearsal during the day at 9:30, which would free you up to just go straight to practice afterwards. Again, it's only 1 time in a 7-day cycle, but we feel like that would help to alleviate some of that pull. If you're not in a performance, we have a commitment to JK through 12 community time. And so we will be working to facilitate cross-divisional relationships, whether it might mean taking an upper school class down to do some work with the 2nd grade, or maybe doing something off campus with an upper school class and a middle school class. But trying to bolster those JK to 12 community relationships more organically by providing a regular time to meet.
All right. You might have noticed that food has not yet figured into this schedule. And we left it for last because, though we think it's important, we wanted you to really understand the whole framework before we get to the food piece. Now, at this point in time, lunch in the upper school is at 12:40. And before that is lower school lunch and middle school lunch. As we had mentioned, lunch really wasn't movable, so we knew it had to be after 12:40. So where it falls within the schedule is at 1:20, which seems late, but what we really think about is when we were looking at the long day, we thought, our kids don't really have school only from 8 until 3. Most of our students really have a day that stretches from 8 until 5 or 6. So looking at it in this way, having lunch later seemed to make some sense. But having lunch late means that there needs to be food earlier in the day. So the committee really talked about what would this mean. We'd seen some other schools that did late lunch, and those schools provided a snack for students in the morning. And what this will be a snack provided by the school that's available in different areas throughout the school, so any student can pick one up. And it will be substantial enough that they can make it through until lunch, and it will be healthy and balanced. So we really think that meets some of the goals about having a healthy, well-balanced, life and school life for our students and allows them time to eat and to fit within this framework.
And if you have a free period before lunch, which you will have 1 to maybe 2 times per cycle, you can still get into the dining hall at 12:40. So you can still eat lunch. So some of the highlights to wrap up just this daily schedule would be the importance of sleep. So we are allowing for a late start, which we were very excited about being able to put into the schedule. This does provide, we feel that 75 minutes provides for many more opportunities for deeper, more varied learning experiences, which was one of our main charges at the very beginning. You'll see that no 2 classes meet back to back. So while the classes are longer, you're never going to have 2 75-minute blocks back to back, which provides a little bit of a relief as you go through your academic time. The consistency of the length of each period will allow teachers to plan more effectively and use the time more effectively. There's less transition time now, but in this current schedule than between classes. So currently you're transitioning 5 or 6 times a day. In this, you'll only be transitioning 4. And also, when we looked at homework, we spent a lot of time talking about homework. And while at the moment we don't necessarily see the amount of homework decreasing, we do feel that you will only be preparing for 3 to 4 classes each day as opposed to 5 or 6. And also, because you have so much more time in class to really dig into a material and use that time effectively, we feel that will reduce some of that homework stress and maybe homework load in the future. If you also look at the flexibility that's involved here, we were really excited about the possibility of taking kids off campus. If you have class on C block in the first day, you can see that you could potentially take your kids from 11:40 to 1:55 off campus. Or you could take a class from 1:20 to almost 3:10 off campus. So it opened up quite larger chunks of time for us to get outside of the classroom or to bring speakers in and to have a little bit of flexibility with our classes there. And lastly, I think I would highlight AP Science, which is not listed on our slide, but currently in the 5-day schedule, if you're in AP Science, you come in 2 times early a week at 7:40, which means you come in 32 times early per semester, 64 times per year. Currently in this schedule, because all of the blocks rotate, we will still have early AP Science. It'll start at 7:45. But you will only have that once per cycle. So you will be coming in slightly earlier, but you will only be doing so 10 times per semester, 20 times per year, as opposed to 32 or 64 times.
So this gives you a really good idea of what our weekly schedule would look like. The last thing that I have to talk about is not something that I can put on a weekly schedule. But as we talked about experiential learning and the importance of it, and really doing school, we thought, well, we have interim, which is this wonderful week-long experience that allows students to do a lot of different types of things, but that's not necessarily tied to academics. So how could we create something where you could have that time to be able to do those sorts of experiential things in a full day chunk throughout the year? So as we looked at our 7-day rotations and we counted it off, we have 10 7-day cycles in a semester, and then depending on the calendar for the year, we'd have 2 to 3 extra days per semester. And so our theory and what we're proposing and that we will do is that we will take those days and connect them to either on-campus or off-campus experiences where academic subjects, so say French, I could bring in a speaker and we could do something with French, or I could do something on campus with another division. So I could present with my classes to another division. And our goal is to have all 220 students active during these days. So there's lots of different ways to look at it. We could look at it departmentally or by classes, 9th and 10th. And we wanted to make sure, so you know, that this is still in development because we really want input from both faculty and students. So starting in January, we'll have a group that will be really hammering out what these X days look like, but they will be, and it will help to enrich our curriculum as it stands now. There are also a couple of times during the year where we have half days. And so we have PSATs or testing in the morning, and then we have a half day, or we have a half day and then parent-teacher conferences. Both of those happen in the first semester, and they both happen before our interim. So as we thought as a committee, interim is such an important part of what we do, but we don't always have the time to do the build-up and some of the legwork or foundation work that we'd like to. So what we'll be doing with those 2 half X days is connecting them to interim, so that people doing service interims might go to the agency or bring in someone from the agency to talk about it. You might do some research before you take students off on a trip, or do something more hands-on in preparation. So that's another really exciting thing that we're going to be doing that both feeds into our curricular program, but also our co-curricular program as we think of interim.
So that is the academic schedule as proposed for the 2015-2016 school year, and we're really excited about it, and we hope you enjoyed listening to our presentation.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.